Welcome once again to another You Comment, We Respond after a prolonged absence. I mean, we were at the World Series of Poker.
This guy was busy making a World Series of Poker final table over here. Give him a break.
Okay.
Leave him alone.
All right, well, let's talk about a different final table that happened, though.
How humble are you right now?
Let's
just move on.
I'm crazy humble. It's amazing. Everybody says so. The hand we're going to talk about first, though, occurred between Eric Seidel and Chino Riem back in the golden ages where people were trying to create new poker tours like the Epic Poker Tour, which failed epically.
The questionably named Epic Poker Tour.
Yeah. Anyway, Seidel, Chino Riem, that's fun, right?
Yeah.
If you want to see that hand, click right up there. A little recap here. Seidel opened 7-5 in the hijack because I guess he decided that was a good idea. Chino Riem called with Queen 10 off on the button because he decided that was a good idea.
These are, whatever.
I mean,
just move on.
these things happen. It was an ace-ace-king flop. There was a c-bet and a call from Chino. The turn was a 7 pairing Seidel. Seidel bet again.
So interesting.
Chino decided to raise, which, you know, we had a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Seidel was like, I don't believe you, Chino Riem. I call. The river was a 4. Check. Chino moves Seidel in, which is about a 2/3 pot bet, and Seidel calls because Chino's story doesn't really add up that much.
Yeah, not so much anyway. All right, so Love Things and Such says, good read by Chino, better read by Seidel. I think a better play for Chino would be to float the turn getting a good price and bet the river a reasonable amount if he bricks and is checked to. If the pot wasn't as bloated by a turn raise, Chino could rep a wider value range. Seidel might still call, but it's cheaper and much more credible.
I agree certainly that it's way more credible if Chino just flats the turn.
Yes.
We came to the conclusion he's repping one combo or something. Maybe it's 0 combos after we take suits into account.
Maybe one combo of ace-7.
Ace-7 suited,
Maybe,
yeah, but it wouldn't make sense for Chino to raise anything but a full house for value on the turn because Seidel is completely uncapped.
It's possible because Chino's got so many bluffs in his range, he actually is raising some of his other big aces, but it can't be too many of them.
And also
maybe
that
ace
can't
queen,
be
maybe
that
ace
good
jack.
anyway, right? It can't really be that good anyway to do that. There's a reason people don't do that.
Also, Seidel may think that Chino's just going to 3-bet those hands pre-flop and he can remove them entirely. So now there's no aces that Chino can have that aren't full houses, and that means we're down to exactly the one combo of ace-7. That's a problem.
Right, and we certainly agree with this comment that if Chino had just called the turn and then made a move on the river, that would look a lot more like a big hand.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it looks like trip aces that are letting Seidel continue to fire.
Right.
So I like that better for sure. I completely agree. Okay, moving on.
Oh yeah, let's move on.
We got billionaire drives Phil Hellmuth nuts.
Well, everybody drives Phil Hellmuth nuts, right?
That's true. It's not the fact that the guy's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Although, you know, that might stick in Phil's
He is
craw.
a billionaire, and he did drive Phil Hellmuth nuts in this hand, though.
Causation, correlation, I don't know.
I don't know. We're not scientists. Anyway, click right up there to check it out. It's a hand where Bill Klein, it was a 111K one drop, right?
That's right.
Bill Klein opened the button with King 6 off. Not the best idea, but whatever. It's
Whatever.
fine. Phil Hellmuth in the big blind called with 8-6 of diamonds, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Good job, Phil.
So far, so good.
All right, the flop was King 7.
That's right.
Phil decided to donk small.
We're not sure why,
We're
but
not sure why.
you know what? Fine, take a shot.
Bill Klein just calls with his trip kings.
I like that.
Turns in 8, pairing Phil Hellmuth. He bets again, small again, this time for value, it seems.
Trying to get called by a 7, most likely.
Bill Klein just calls again.
Yeah.
The river is a 3rd king, giving Bill Klein quads, and Phil Hellmuth bets again.
Yeah.
Bill Klein raises a lot. It's a very big raise.
Yeah.
And Phil inexplicably calls and then acts like the most unlucky, saddest boy in the world.
Yeah, it's a little weird the way it plays out for sure. It's almost like Phil's ultimately pretending he wants the table to think he had like flopped a full house, you know, 7
He has like pocket
like
aces that he's slow playing.
But like everyone's gonna see it on the stream anyway in a half an hour. What are you doing? Why are you pretending? It was weird.
Yeah.
So here's what Adrian 4500 says. That's cool.
If that's his real last name, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just a number. Your last name's a number.
Sounds like one of the Terminator students, the T800, the T1000, the Adrian 4500.
Yeah.
Bill Klein is known to make some major river raises for bluffs. I presume that Phil thinks Bill Klein is the only one at the table that could do such a bluff because the money means less to him. I don't think Phil calls any other person with the same line. However, I don't think Phil plays this against the other players at the table either. This was a player-based line that went horribly wrong.
Well, that might be right, and it might be true that Bill Klein raises rivers as a bluff sometimes.
Really? I don't know if that's true anyway.
I mean, it happened against Phil Galfond that one time.
That one time?
Yeah, it's called the Billionaire Bluffs. It's a
ago.
really old one that we did. It's a fun one. You should check that out.
It's a cool hand. He actually doesn't raise, though. He just donks the river.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Calls a raise and donks. But anyway.
It's a river bluff by Bill Klein.
It is.
However, in the way this hand was played, I don't think pretty much anybody has a bluff on the river here. Not very often, at least.
I mean, you just aren't going to expect. I mean, Phil Hellmuth can have quad kings himself.
Very easily,
I mean,
yeah.
It's a weird line, but it's not impossible that he wouldn't just bet the king on all 3 streets. When he bets the 3rd time, he He's now is repping a very strong hand. And in
Yeah.
Phil's mind, by the way, he thinks he does have a strong hand. He's got kings full of 8s, right?
I mean, if Bill Klein's raising here as a bluff, it's like he's trying to get Phil Hellmuth off 2 10s, which I don't know if that's a good idea to try to do.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Right. So I don't really see him having a bluff here, even if you're right and he's a little bit bluffier than most players, it seems like a weird spot for a bluff.
I agree.
Next up, we got Phil Galfond tortured by a 110K bet.
Tortured.
Seriously, it's like Saw 7. It's horrible. It's horrific.
Don't
if you want to
watch the
see all the
video.
gruesome gore, click right up there.
Don't do it. Do
No.
not click on that.
Don't click on it.
It's
No,
bad.
Click on it.
Okay.
Click on it.
Whatever, don't.
Anyway, this hand had some inexplicable decisions from Phil Galfond, which is unusual from our perspective.
Yeah.
Where David Benjamin opened 2 10s. This is high stakes poker.
He was +1 also.
Yeah, high stakes poker, big game. Everybody's really deep. Benjamin opens 2 10s to 4K, I think. Galfond makes it 16K with King 5 offsuit for one reason or another.
Yeah,
Ellie,
that's right.
Ellie from the small blind makes it $40,500. Benjamin folds, we think correctly. Ellie has 2 kings. Galfond calls with his King 5 offsuit. He's getting a really good price. He's in position against a guy who's going to put a lot of chips in. I don't know.
All those things are true. We also have King 5 off against a 4-bet.
Yeah.
A cold 4-bet, just saying.
Just saying. They're saying that the flop's King 9-9, which is
Yeah.
really good for Ellie. He's got kings full. Galfond flops a king somehow, even though Ellie has kings full. Ellie bets small. Galfond calls. That seems like the right move.
They both have to do that.
Right.
Well.
The turn is another 9. So now Galfond has a full house too. 9's full of kings. Ellie checks. Galfond checks.
I love this play by both players.
Yeah, it's perfectly good. The river's a queen, and Ellie bets that torturous 110K.
Torturous.
And Phil Galfond somehow gets away from it, which
Yeah.
is really cool. I mean, it kind of, in a way, justifies his pre-flop action in my mind. Not entirely, but if he can make decisions like that post-flop, it helps.
It does help, but we did lose like $60,000 or some more
Whatever.
than that. We lost like 70 grand.
I mean, that's like half a slide.
Half a slide, yeah. All right, Lachie Panetta says
Lachie
this.
Panetta.
I don't think Phil made a mistake pre-flop. In terms of hand selection, weak unsuited aces and kings make good 3-bet bluffs due to removal / ability to value bet on more flops compared to 3-bet bluffing suited connectors. He's either going to win pre-flop or usually play post-flop heads up very deep with someone he is much better than. For the same reason, calling the 4-bet isn't spewy because he has position. Plus, Ellie isn't a great hand reader, so Phil will be able to rep hands he realistically won't have. When you're this deep and this much better than your opponent, it can't be a big mistake.
All right, so this guy's doing a super version of what we often do, which
That's
is
right.
give people like Phil Galfond a lot of credit.
So much credit.
We don't give him this much credit. This is a crazy amount of credit. Like, why are we choosing an unsuited version? What's so great about choosing an unsuited version? How about a suited version? We can flop so much better, so much more frequently.
Yeah, these are hands that we would actually want to see a flop with versus King 5 off, which we have no interest in ever seeing a flop with. That's a big difference. Also, suited connectors play better post-flop, even though I understand, yes, we don't flop top pair as often. We're also not dominated when we get action with top pair, like King 5 in this example, right? So I definitely prefer suited connectors or suited aces or even a suited king than this. I don't know why we're doing it at all with King 5 off against the +1
Phil
opener.
Galfond certainly has a reason, though.
Oh, I'm
That
not
guy has
saying
reasons.
Phil Galfond knows what he's doing,
Yeah.
but I think this notion of like, well, we're better and we're deep, so then can we just always 3-bet any
3-bet
ace or
every
king,
hand?
no matter what, and who cares if we get 4-betted?
Yeah.
We're in position, we're better than they are, blah, blah. I mean, part of being better than someone else is having hand selection, right?
Right.
And having a bit stronger range than they do.
Although, Lachie Panetta, I feel you because, we often, we recently did a video with Mike Watson and Nick Petrangelo where we have to choose a lot of times to give them a lot of extra credit or else it looks really spewy.
Yes.
And that's what we have to do when we know the players are elite and their decisions are questionable.
I at least think this is a bridge too far.
It might be.
I don't know if you necessarily think that, right?
I think it's probably not a good idea.
I feel like on the podcast you argued for it's okay ultimately to call here with King 5 off, and I said
I thought it wasn't the worst thing in the world,
Yeah.
but it's not great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, finally, the last one is Todd Brunson has what?
Todd Brunson has what? He has Queen 9 suited, so it's actually a bit
Now we know.
hyperbolic of a title.
We're
Anyway,
now-
click right up there if you want to see that one.
I mean, what hand could he have that it's not hyperbolic?
I mean, 7 deuce.
I mean, that's a bad hand. Anyway,
He
let's
has
tell
Queen
what
9
happened.
suited. He opens under the gun in Poker Night in America 2550 game. Kate Hall on the button has 2 kings. She 3-bets. Seems pretty normal so far.
So far.
Except for the Queen 9 under the gun, but whatever. The big blind calls with Queen Jack off for no reason. Todd Brunson has to call now. The flop is 9 high. Brunson checks. Hall bets. Brunson calls. The turn is a second club, bringing a flush draw with top pair for Todd Brunson.
Pretty good.
Check, bet, call.
Sure.
River's a 9. That's the miracle card for Todd Brunson.
Hello.
Yep, that's what he said. Actually, as the card came out,
it was a bit of a tell.
it was a bit of a tell. I don't know why Kate Hall didn't see it.
She missed it.
Yeah, she bets, and Todd Brunson moves in, giving her an incredibly good price. It's like almost unfair. It's such a good price, but you're never ahead of anything. It's a really crappy spot. She ultimately calls. We thought it was okay, but it was a bad spot.
Yes. Anthony Fox says, the play I'm not sure I understand here is Todd's check call on the turn. He certainly can't beat any of Kate's value here. As was discussed, she basically has pocket nines plus and maybe ace, king, ace, queen the way she played the hand pre-flop. And the overs are going to check back a lot. What is Todd's plan here? Seems like he is calling to try to miracle a 5-outer, which may be even less, as she could very feasibly have queens, blocks 2 outs, or nines drawing dead. I think I know what happened.
Yeah, you might have needed to vet that comment a little bit more.
Yeah.
Anthony Fox did not realize that there was a second club on the turn.
In fact, someone else pointed that out, and he says, geez, you are right. Makes a ton more sense. Somehow I missed that when viewing certainly makes a call standard.
Right.
But why did we do this comment?
I don't know.
Should we move on to another one?
Yeah, go ahead. Pick a different one.
Sorry, everyone. Code Chisel LOL 1232 says, the truly strange thing about this hand is the fact that what she is wanting to get called by makes the best bluffs, 7s and 8s. This makes her river bet and call a lot better because she would be folding too much otherwise. I think she has to draw the line at kings, though, and only call with kings when she doesn't have a club. I think checking the river is the best play, but Todd's range is heavily weighted towards 10s and jacks, and Kate obviously thought she could read him very well to be playing like this.
I guess that might be true, but I think what I might disagree with is she's trying to get called by 7s and 8s. Todd's going to fold 7s and 8s on the river, I'm pretty sure. I think she's trying to get called by 10s, jacks, and queens.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure that's what she's trying to get called by. Like 7s and 8s, it's really hard to call again. You have to pray she's bluffing. I mean, with queens, you can beat at least jacks and 10s. Jacks, you can beat 10s. It's not super great, but you block jacks at least. And you chop with jacks at least, right? 10s, you can't really beat anything, and it's kind of sucks.
7s and 8s are what she's hoping Todd has when he moves in, probably, because those are blocker hands that he might show up with here.
Right.
It's possible, but I don't think she's expecting to get called by those hands.
I mean, really, no. It's hard to really come up with them. I mean, ultimately, she said she thought Todd was considering re-raising pre-flop, 4-betting it.
Yeah.
And so now she's putting him in a tighter range than queen 9 suited. And if that's the case, now we can call with a fair amount of ease, because you wouldn't expect Todd to play aces like this very often.
Not often.
And if he's going to have aces, then he can have queens. He can maybe have jacks. Would he really move in with jacks?
No.
Would
Never.
he move in with queens?
No.
Probably not.
No, the answer is no.
So this sucks.
It's a sucky spot.
Yeah.